Coming round.
Cape, it's fine. Look, horse done.
Madam, you asked about the buggy park. It's just up there on your right hand side if you need to find it, alright? Coming in, ladies and gents, coming in. Guys, if you're stuck at the back there, keep coming round. There's plenty of space on my right hand side here, so come on round. Okay then, ladies and gentlemen, now we're standing beside the world famous, or should I say the infamous, Traitors Gate, built during the reign of King Edward I. Now, it wasn't always called Traitors Gate. It used to be called the Watergate, and the purpose of the Watergate was to allow the safe conduct of provisions and prisoners into the tower via the river, rather than using the unsafe roads around London, often inhabited by rogues and vagabonds who'd steal the provisions, and more often than not, they'd just set the prisoners free. Now, the term Traitors Gate didn't come about until the Tudor period, because it was at that time when the tower was mainly used as a state prison. And during that period of history, 4 Queens of England were to enter the tower via Traitors Gate. Queen Anne Boleyn, Queen Catherine Howard, Lady Jane Grey, and the young Princess Elizabeth, soon to go on to become Queen Elizabeth I. Of the 4 of them, 3 of them are still here, buried within the confines of the tower. They were never given the option to leave. Now, above Traitors Gate, we've got St Thomas's Tower, also built during the same period. It's called St Thomas's Tower because it's named after St Thomas à Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who was murdered in Canterbury Cathedral on the orders of King Henry II. Inside, ladies and gentlemen, is the medieval palace. So if you wish to visit the medieval palace later on, the entrance is just at the top of the stairs there to my left. Now, you'll be able to walk through the medieval palace. That will bring you across this bridge here, known as Salvin's Bridge, into the Upper Wakefield Tower behind you there. If you look closely, you can see the ghost taking pictures of us out the window. Oh, she's gone now, never mind. That will then lead you on to the southern, eastern and northern ramparts of the tower. They're all open for you to visit once we finish this tour later today. Now, behind you there, ladies and gentlemen, we have the infamous Bloody Tower. But again, it wasn't always called the Bloody Tower. We used to call it the Garden Tower. We changed the name for marketing reasons. No, that's not true. It gets its name from Shakespeare's play, Richard III, where he tells the story of the alleged murder of the 2 boy princes. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the story, it goes something like this. King Edward IV had just died. He had died, leaving behind 2 young sons. The 12-year-old uncrowned Edward V and his younger 9-year-old brother, Richard, Duke of York. Because the young Edward was deemed too young to rule the country, they were put under the care and protection of their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, who had the boys brought here to the tower for their own protection. As soon as they were here, though, he had them declared illegitimate. With the boys out of the way, funnily enough, that made Uncle Richard the first in line for the throne. And he was soon crowned King Richard III. Shortly after his coronation, the boys disappeared. They were never seen alive again. Richard, he died fighting a few years later at the Battle of Bosworth Field in the year 1485. Shortly after the battle, some men came forward and actually admitted to murdering the boys whilst they lay sleeping in a bedchamber behind that top window. Now, they said they'd smothered the boys in their sleep, bundled their young bodies down the staircase and covered them over with a pile of stones. The next day, an unknown priest came, he took the bodies away and he buried them underneath a staircase inside the White Tower. And there they lay, undiscovered for 191 years, until some workmen who were working on the staircase uncovered a box. Now, he probably thought he'd found hidden treasure, but you can imagine his horror and dismay when he opened the box and found the bones of 2 young children. Experts at the time immediately declared these must be the bones of the 2 boy princes. So they were placed in an urn designed by Sir Christopher Wren. They were then taken to Westminster Abbey, where their young remains were reinterred into Innocents' Corner. That is where, ladies and gentlemen, they still lay to this very day. And you've gone very quiet. Right, okay, let's tell you a story to cheer you up. Right, behind you, ladies and gentlemen, up high on the wall, you can see a number of windows. All of the windows you see in the wall there, they all light up the back of the Queen's house. I'm going to show you the Queen's house very shortly. But the large window, right at the top of the wall, that lights up the council chamber. It was in that very room that Guy Fawkes was interrogated after the Gunpowder Plot. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Gunpowder Plot, basically what it was an attempt to blow up King James I and all his ministers whilst they sat in Parliament in November 1605. Guy Fawkes was caught red-handed. He was brought here to the Tower for interrogation. At first, he refused to give up the names of his co-conspirators, so on the orders of the king, he was taken to the basement of the White Tower and put to the rack. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what the rack is, I've got to tell you, it's an ingenious device for turning short people into tall people. Sadly, though, in doing so, it does dislocate all the joints in the body. Now, unsurprisingly, after only a short period of interrogation on the rack, Guy Fawkes gave up the names of his co-conspirators. It didn't save him, though. He was then taken to the place of his crime, Westminster Yard, where he was publicly hung, drawn, disemboweled, and then quartered. And every year on November the 5th, our children, they make effigies of Guy Fawkes. We put him on top of a bonfire, we set off fireworks, and then we all set light to him. Wonderful nation, the British, aren't we? Now, if you've heard the nursery rhyme, remember the 5th of November. Gunpowder, treason and plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. And that's why we still do it, ladies and gentlemen. It's purely become a British tradition. Okay, onwards and upwards. We're going to move off again now, ladies and gentlemen. Once more, can I please ask you to clear a path for me there so I can squeeze through and get to the front?